Hi everybody, welcome to today's yoga. This is going to be a 30-minute practice. If you have a regular Vinyasa practice and you like to do chaturangas and up dogs, feel welcome to do them today, but I'm not going to cue them. If you've got any injuries, please be mindful. If something doesn't feel right in the body, just back out of it. If you like to use props in your practice, like a block, just have it to hand so it's ready to use when you need it. And we'll get started in a comfortable seated position. So I like to sit cross-legged, or you can sit on your heels, making sure you feel even through the sitting bones. You might like to use a block or a cushion just to wedge into your sitting bones to help you lift up out of the waist. Just resting the hands wherever is comfortable, so on the knees or in the lap. Maybe closing the eyes or lowering the gaze. Letting the shoulders drop down away from the ears. Relaxing the face. We'll just take a few minutes here. Just bringing our awareness to our breath. Start to quiet the mind, letting go of any thoughts. And just let yourself be present in the moment here. Having a quick check through the body, seeing how it feels. Just letting the breath slow everything down. Taking full deep inhale through the nose and pausing at the top of your breath, and then letting go with a full exhale. Noticing the inhale, fill the belly, fill the chest, and then exhaling fully. And just a few more rounds of breath like this. As we move through the practice today, try and maintain that smooth, steady breath. So you're welcome to keep your eyes closed here. On an inhale, we're going to circle our arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead. On an exhale, we're going to bring our right hand down towards the floor, reaching our left arm up and over, side body stretch here. Making sure that left sitting bone stays connected with the mat. Maybe bringing that right elbow down onto the mat or just keeping it lifted. On our next inhale, coming back through to center, both arms up towards the ceiling. On an exhale, taking our left hand down towards the mat, reaching that right arm up and over, side body stretch here. Inhaling back through to center, both arms up. Exhaling, bringing our hands down, changing our seating position, so coming to sit on our heels, using a block to sit on if that makes it a bit more comfortable. And on an inhale, we're going to take our right arm up towards the ceiling. We're going to bend the elbow and bring in our palm of the hand against the upper back, or maybe onto the back of the neck. And if you want to, you can reach your left arm, bending at the elbow, catching a hold of the fingers here, or maybe just holding onto that right elbow with the left hand, drawing it back gently, feeling that stretch all the way down the back of the arm here. So for our warm-up today, we're going to be focusing on the upper back because we're doing some upper body work as we move into our more challenging poses. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing these arms, this time taking our left arm up towards the ceiling, bending at the elbow, bringing that palm of the hand onto the back of the neck or onto the upper back, maybe bending the right elbow, catching a hold of fingers here, or holding onto that elbow with the right arm, gently drawing it back, feeling that stretch down the back of the left arm. One more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing the arms, coming into our tabletop pose. So we want our palms directly under the wrists and shoulders here, and then we want our knees directly under the hips. And we'll move through some cat-cow. So on an inhale, we're going to lift the tailbone, drop the belly, chest comes forward, gaze is forward. As we exhale, round and contract, chin to chest, taking our gaze towards the thighs. Inhaling, dropping that belly, tailbone lifts, chest comes forward. Exhaling to round and contract. Do two more here in your own breath. On an exhale, you might want to push through the hands, increasing that stretch into the upper back. And after your final go round, just coming into a neutral spine here. And we'll move into our thread the needle pose. So on an inhale, we're going to reach our right arm up towards the ceiling, stretching across the chest here. As we exhale, bringing that right hand behind the left wrist, coming onto the right shoulder and right ear. Making any adjustments that you need to here for the upper back. So you might want to press into that left palm of the hand or reach that left arm forward. Trying to get that left armpit down towards the mat, taking that stretch all the way across the upper back, making sure our hips stay over our knees here. If you do have that left hand outstretched, bringing it back underneath that left shoulder. On an inhale, we will release from here. So reaching our right arm up towards the ceiling, exhaling, bringing that right hand back down. We'll move on the left side. So reaching that left hand up towards the ceiling, stretching across the chest here. As we exhale, thread the needle. So coming down onto the left shoulder and left ear here. Making any adjustments you need to. So maybe reaching that right arm forward. Maybe keeping that right hand where it is and just pressing down through the palm of the hand here. Feeling that nice stretch into the upper back, into that left shoulder. And then bringing that right hand back if you do have it outstretched. On an exhale, we'll release from here. So reaching that left hand up towards the ceiling, exhaling, bringing that hand back down. And we'll make our way into our first downward facing dog. So bringing our palms of the hands slightly forward than the shoulders, shoulder width distance apart, spreading those fingertips wide. Our feet are hip width distance apart. We're going to tuck the toes. On an exhale, we're going to take that tailbone high, coming into our downward facing dog here. So you might need to keep a bend in the knees if your backs of the legs are feeling tight. We're looking for length in the spine here. So a nice long straight line all the way from our wrists up to our tailbone. You might want to pedal out the feet. So maybe dropping one heel down to the mat, bending into the opposite knee, just pedaling those feet back and forth. Maybe you want to sway the hips from side to side here, making any movement that you need to make this first downward facing dog feel good. Press into the fingertips and knuckles of the hands here. Making sure you're not holding any tension in the neck. Ears should be in line with the bicep. Our gaze towards our feet. And then coming into some stillness with the legs. On our next inhale, we're going to bend into the knees, gaze comes towards the hands, and we're going to slowly walk our feet up to the top of the mat, coming into our Ragdoll Fold. So our feet are hip width distance apart, slight bend in the knees, laying our chest down across the thighs, maybe taking our hands into opposite elbows, letting that crown of the head feel heavy, loosening all the way down the back of the body here, releasing the lower back. You might want to sway gently from side to side. Making sure you're not holding any tension in the neck here. So maybe nodding the head yes a few times and shaking the head no. And then releasing those fingertips down to the mat, slightly pressing through the heels here, still keeping a bend in the knees. We're going to roll all the way up to standing. Bringing our shoulders in line with our ears, rolling them back and down. Coming into our mountain, our Tadasana Pose. So tailbone is lengthening down, palms are facing forward, shoulders are down away from the ears, crown of the head is lifted. And we're going to bring our big toes together, heels slightly apart. We're going to come into our chair pose, so bringing our hips down, bending it into the knees, reaching our arms up overhead or prayer position in front of the chest. Making sure we're not arching through the back, drawing those shoulder blades together. Making sure the weight is in the heels here, squeezing those thighs and knees together. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to release the hands down towards the mat. And we're going to step our left foot back, coming into our low lunge. So lowering that knee back down to the mat. If you're working on a hard floor, you might want to pad the mat by rolling the pad the knee by rolling the mat over. Keep those toes tucked or coming down onto the top of the feet, reaching those arms up. Making sure that right knee is directly over the right ankle. Hips are facing forward, chest is forward, gaze is forward. Arms are shoulder width distance apart here. Squaring off the hips, so feel like you're pulling the right hip back, left hip forward. Feeling that nice stretch down the left hip flexor here, down the front of that left thigh. If you're feeling balanced here, you can always bring your palms to hands together, taking your gaze up towards the hands, challenging the balance. And then releasing those hands, tucking those toes if they're not tucked. And on our next inhale, we're going to lift that back knee coming into high lunge. You can lower those hands down to support this transition if you need to. So nothing has changed here apart from we're now lifted off the mat. You can keep a bend in that back knee if you need to, or just keep that back leg straight. Just make sure you're not arching into the lower back here. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to release our hands down. We're going to step back into our plank and we're going to come into our side plank. So we're coming onto the edge of our right foot, making sure our right wrist is directly under the right shoulder. We're turning to the long edge of the mat and taking our left arm up towards the ceiling. Gaze is up to the top hand. So we can stack the feet or have one foot in front of the other, or you can come into supported side plank, so bringing that right knee down. So doing whatever you need to here to make the pose more comfortable. Trying to lift those hips, stacking one hip on top of the other, squeezing those obliques. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to release that left hand down and we'll move through a vinyasa. So on an exhale, bending at the elbows, lowering all the way down to the mat, untucking those toes. On an inhale, we're going to lift into our cobra. Make sure you're not pressing too much weight down in the hands, bending the elbows, drawing them in towards the ribs. Shoulders are down away from the ears. On an exhale, lowering down, tucking those toes, making our way into downward facing dog. Taking a breath here. On our next inhale, we're going to bend into the knees and you can hop or step up to the top of the mat. Inhaling, circling our arms out wide, palms meet overhead. Exhale, drawing our hands down through heart center. Bringing those big toes together, heels slightly apart. Coming into our chair pose. So bending into the knees here, maybe reaching the arms up overhead, maybe keeping those palms together at heart center, feeling broad across the chest here, no arching through the spine, drawing those shoulder blades together, squeezing through the thighs and knees, weight is in the heels. One more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing those hands down, we're going to step our right foot back, coming into our low lunge. So padding that back knee if you need to. Left knee is directly over the left ankle, lifting those arms up. Everything is facing forward here, squaring off those hips, so feel like you're pulling left hip back, right hip forward here. Feeling that stretch on the front of the right thigh this time. If you want to challenge your balance, bring those palms together, taking our gaze up towards the hands here. And then tucking those back toes, releasing those arms, so they're shoulder width distance apart. We're going to lift the back knee coming into our high lunge. So you can use your hands to support this transition if you need to. So all that's changed here is the back knee is now lifted. Keep a bend in that knee if you need to. Slow, steady breaths here. Feeling it in that front thigh. One more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to release the hands down. Step this left foot back into plank pose. We're coming into side plank. So making sure left wrist is directly under shoulder. We're going to come to the edge of the left foot, taking that right hand up towards the ceiling. So we're turning to the long edge of the mat here. Gaze is up to the top hand if it's comfortable. Make any of those adjustments with the legs that you need to make the pose more comfortable. Lifting those hips, feeling it in the left obliques this time. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing that right hand down, coming into plank, and we'll move through a vinyasa. So exhaling, bending at the elbows, lowering all the way down. Inhaling into cobra. Exhaling, making our way into downward facing dog. So we're going to repeat that transition, but add in some variations onto the poses. So on our next inhale, bending into the knees, gaze comes towards the hands. We can hop or step up to the top of the mat, and then circling our arms up towards the ceiling, palms overhead, drawing our hands down to our center. So bringing those big toes together, heels slightly apart, bending into the knees, coming back into chair pose. Doing anything you need to with the hands here, so palms together at heart center, or reaching those arms up overhead. And if you want to, we're going to start to do some heel lift. So on an inhale, lifting those heels, exhaling to lower. Inhaling, lifting the heels, exhaling to lower. So every time we inhale, we come up onto the balls of the feet, exhaling to lower. So if you're working on carpet, you might find that this balancing is quite difficult. It's much easier to work on a hard floor. One more inhale here, lifting onto the balls of the feet, exhaling, lowering those heels. We're going to bring those hands down towards the mat, and we're going to step this left foot back, coming into our low lunge. This time we can bring our left palm of the hand down onto the mat, reaching that right arm up, coming into our easy twist. So we're trying to stack that right shoulder over the left shoulder here. Gazes up to the top hand, turning that chest towards the bent leg. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing that right hand down, tucking these back toes, lifting the back knee, coming into our high lunge. Reaching those arms up, shoulder width distance apart. So you can stay here if you want to, or we can start to straighten into that front leg. Exhaling, rebend. Inhaling to straighten. Exhaling to bend. 2 more times. Maybe come in a little bit deeper each time that you rebend. 1 more time. Exhaling into the high lunge. On our next exhale, releasing those hands down, stepping back into our plank pose. This time we're going to move into our forearm plank. So coming down onto our right elbow and forearm. We're going to turn our body to the long edge of the mat, come into the edge of the right foot, reaching that left arm up towards the ceiling. So doing anything you need to with the feet here. You can come into supported side plank if you prefer. Lifting those hips. Gazes up to the top hand if it's comfortable for you. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to release this left hand down, coming onto the forearms. We're going to move into Dolphin Pose here. So making sure our forearms and elbows are shoulder width distance apart. Palms are on the mat. We're going to start to walk the feet in, taking that tailbone high into our Dolphin Pose. So we're taking the weight into the upper back here. You can keep a bend in the knees if you need to, and your heels will probably be lifted off the mat. Crown of the head is not on the mat, it's slightly lifted. If you need to take some of the weight out of the upper back, you can interlace the fingers and that takes the weight into the forearms. If this is too much, just come into downward facing dog. We're not here for very long. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing those knees down, coming into tabletop pose, making our way into downward facing dog. And we'll move through a vinyasa. So inhaling through to plank, exhaling to lower, inhaling into cobra, exhaling to lower, making our way into our downward facing dog. Taking a breath here. On our next inhale, bending into knees, gaze comes towards the hand. You can hop or step up to the top of the mat, circling our arms out wide, making our way up, reaching those hands down through heart center. And we'll come into chair pose. So bringing those big toes together, heels slightly apart, bending into the knees, bringing those hands wherever is comfortable. And we can move into those heel lifts. So on an inhale, coming onto the balls of the feet, exhaling to lower. Inhaling, squeezing those thighs together, exhaling to lower. 2 more times. 1 more lift. Exhaling to lower. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing those hands down, this time stepping the right foot back, coming into easy twist. So planting that right palm of the hand down, taking that left arm up towards the ceiling, gazes up to the top hand. Trying to stack that left shoulder over the right shoulder. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing that left hand down. We're tucking these back toes, lifting the back knee, coming into our high lunge here. Hands are shoulder width distance apart. You can stay here, or if you want to, on an inhale, we're going to straighten into that front leg. Exhaling to bend. Inhaling to straighten. Exhaling to bend. Every time that you come into your bend, you might notice that you're lunging a little bit deeper. One more time. Exhaling to bend. Taking an inhale here. Exhaling, releasing those hands down. We're stepping back into our plank pose. We're coming into our forearm plank on the left. So we're coming down onto the left elbow. Left forearm is directly under the left shoulder, coming onto the edge of the left foot, turning our body to the long edge of the mat, taking our right arm up towards the ceiling. Gaze is up to the top hand. Lifting those hips. Trying to roll that right shoulder back, so make sure that you're not facing the mat with your chest. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing that right hand down, coming onto our forearm, making our way into our Dolphin Pose. So making sure our elbows and forearms are shoulder width distance apart, starting to walk those feet in, bringing the tailbone high, looking for length in the spine here. Keeping a bend in those knees if you need to, maybe interlacing the fingers if you need to, making sure that crown of the head is lifted off the mat here. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, releasing those knees down, coming into tabletop pose, tucking those toes, making our way into downward facing dog. So we'll move through our final vinyasa here. On an inhale, coming into plank, exhaling, bending at the elbows, lowering all the way down here. Inhaling into cobra, exhaling to lower, making our way into our downward facing dog. Taking a breath here. On our next inhale, bending into knees, gaze comes towards the top of the mat. Hop or step up to the top of the mat. Inhaling, circling our arms out wide, palms meet overhead. Exhaling, drawing those hands down through heart center. One more chair pose here. Bringing our big toes together, heels slightly apart, bending into the knees. So we're only using this chair pose to support our transition into boat. So engaging the core here. With control, we're going to lower the hips down towards the mat, coming into boat. So if you need to lower your hands down to the mat to support the transition, go ahead. We're bringing our shins in line with our knees. We're engaging the core here, drawing those toes back towards you, maybe releasing the arms at shoulder height. Gazes towards the big toes. Drawing the shoulder blades together so you're not rounding through the upper back. If you want to come into full boat, you can bring your legs and your arms up towards the ceiling. I find it quite challenging, so I prefer to stay in half boat. A few more breaths here. On our next exhale, we're going to cross at the ankles, coming into tabletop pose and coming down onto our fronts. So bringing our forehead down onto the mat, reaching our arms out long behind us with our palms facing in towards the thighs here, or maybe you can interlace your fingers onto the lower back. We're going to move into our Locus Pose. So on an inhale, we're going to start to lift the forehead, lift the chest, lift the arms off the mat, pressing those hips in towards the mat. Those tops of the feet are still connected with the mat here, using back strength to help us lift. On an exhale, lowering everything back down. On our next inhale, we're going to start to lift the feet, lift the knees, squeezing the glutes together. Exhaling to lower the legs. On our next inhale, lifting the forehead, lifting the chest, lifting the arms, lifting the legs. Reaching those toes behind you, reaching through the fingertips, reaching that crown of the head forward. Exhaling to lower everything down. Bring those hands underneath the shoulders. We're going to push our hips back towards our feet. So we're sitting on our heels. And we're going to move into a little twist. So we're going to our left hand onto our right knee, right fingertips behind us or on the lower back. Drawing that belly in towards the spine. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, bring our chest back through to center. Taking an inhale here. As we exhale, Bringing right hand onto left knee, left fingertips on the floor behind us or onto the lower back. Taking a twist here. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, bring our chest back through to center. We're going to bring our feet off to one side, bringing our legs out long in front of us, drawing our toes back towards us, pushing through the heels, lifting up out of the sitting bones. On an inhale, going to lift and lengthen, so lifting our arms up towards the ceiling. On an exhale, lifting up out of the waist, coming into a forward fold. So bringing our hands wherever is comfortable, no pulling or tugging here. If you can reach, you could interlace your fingers around the big toes. Reaching that crown of the head forward, feeling that release in the lower back. On our next inhale, lifting that chest back up to center, and we're going to bring our hips forward so you've got enough room to lie down behind us, bending into the knees, soles of the feet and on the mat, reaching those arms out at shoulder height, engaging that core. With control, we're going to slowly lower all the way down until we bring our shoulders down onto the mat. We're going to bring our arms out at shoulder height, or cactus the arms if you don't have the room. We're going to press into the feet, and on the inhale, we're just going to lift our hips, shift them slightly over to the right. On an exhale, we're going to drop our knees down to the left as our gaze comes over to the right, or keeping our gaze up towards the ceiling. So if your knees don't quite come down onto the floor, you can make a fist with your left hand, placing it underneath the left knee, or maybe resting your hand on top of the right knee to help get it there, or using a block. Feeling broad across the chest here, making sure both shoulder blades are connected with the mat. On our next inhale, engaging that core, so we can bring our knees back through to center, placing those soles of the feet on the mat, lifting the hips, shifting them slightly to the left now, bringing those knees in towards the chest. And as we exhale, laying them down to the right, gaze can come over to the left, or keep your gaze up towards the ceiling, making sure that left shoulder stays down on the mat. Making any adjustments you need to with the legs here to make the pose more comfortable. Feeling broad across the chest. And then engaging that core. On an inhale, we're going to bring our knees back into center. We're going to wrap our arms around our shins, taking our nose in towards our knee, curling ourselves into a little ball here. On our next exhale, releasing our head and shoulders back down towards the mat. And this is where we can come into Shavasana if you want to, so you can hip pause and lay down on the mat. Otherwise you can hold on to the backs of the thighs here and roll up and down the spine until you come to a seated position. And we'll just take a moment here to close off our practice. So closing the eyes or lowering the gaze, bringing our hands down wherever is comfortable. Having a quick check-in with the body, seeing how it feels. Does it feel any different when you first got on the mat? And we'll close up our practice. So on an inhale, we're going to circle our arms up towards the ceiling, our palms meet overhead. Exhaling, drawing those hands down through our centre. Bowing our forehead to our fingertips. Namaste. I hope you enjoyed the practice. Thank you. Bye.